All right, hey everybody. I'm Scott, and I'm from Shareist. And Shareist is a content marketing platform, software solution that helps you capture ideas, curate, share, schedule content to social media, create pages out of that content for use in your blogs and newsletters and ebooks and white papers, all from one platform. So we think a lot about content marketing, and what we find though is that just having a great set of tools is not enough. So you need to think about a lot of other things, kind of getting your head straight around content, around processes and procedures that you can use, and that's what this talk is about. Were any of you at the blogger session yesterday? A lot of people asked me if I was going to be demoing Shareist here today, and sadly I'm not. I don't think that's very cool just to do a sales pitch. But anybody who wants to see it, I'm around all week, and I'd be happy to sit down and give a demo. This presentation, everything that I talk about, you can do with Shareist, and you can do with lots of other tools. And I'll be mentioning some of them. So this presentation promises two things: successful content marketing and content marketing in 30 minutes a day. Both of those things individually are not that hard, but to do that together, I think is something that we could all hope for. How many of you have a big content writing team? No, you don't, Shannon. Okay, good. Nobody does. I don't, and that's what this is about. So to help you get your content taken care of, by yourself if you have to, or with one staff member, and in a small amount of time. So what is content marketing? Let's kind of get that out of the way. Content marketing is using content and media in a way that engages with an audience. It's not about selling, it's about solving problems for people, entertaining them, fulfilling a need, and growing your audience and engaging with your audience in a way that makes them appreciate you and like you and connect with them. I was out on a bike ride a couple days ago, Thursday, thinking about this presentation for 2 hours while I was doing that. And had my iPhone on like Super Shuffle, which is all the music that you ever have, shuffling through, and a podcast came on with Sonia Simone. I don't know if any of you have heard of her or heard her talk, but it was kind of coincidental. I normally would have skipped past it, but the podcast she was talking about was marketing, and it was from her remarkable marketing blueprint, and it was her talk about the ARC, which is an acronym for what marketing is all about: attention and reputation and community. And those are the three things you're focusing on in marketing: to get attention first of all, and then take that attention and turn that into a good reputation for yourself. And the more you do that, you're going to grow a community, and that's really what content marketing is all about. So I don't know if you can see this very well, but this came from a whiteboard talk from Rand Fishkin from Moz, SEO Moz, and this is what he called the greatest misconception in content marketing. I think this is a great thing he went through. A lot of people think that you just create an amazing piece of content that people will love and share, and then everyone's going to share it and like it and tweet it and send it out, and then you're instantly going to have a bunch of traffic and a bunch of people coming to your website. And this never happens this way. What actually happens is that you have to do step one a bunch of times, and maybe something will stick eventually. And step three never happens, which is that a bunch of people are just going to come to your site because of the content. What you need to do is use your content to foster an audience, and then go after that audience to sell them. And so people who invest in content marketing, because they think that these things will happen, they fail to plan for what will really take for time and effort to do content. And they also, not realizing that things take a long time, just give up on it way too easily and too soon. And these first two bullets are, that Rand pointed out, in where people fail are really I think the key points that we're honing in on today. So, does anyone know what this is? Type of Indian food? So, Sonia and people like Sonia Simone and Brian Clark and Chris Brogan come up with really great acronyms for their marketing ideas. I come up with really bad acronyms for my marketing ideas. but I remember them. This is a Papadum, Indian food, and that's my acronym, PPDM. And so hopefully you'll remember this next time you have Indian food. And PPDM stands for basically the 4 steps in content marketing, which is plan, produce, distribute, and measure. And these are the things you should be focusing on with your content. So the planning step in PPDM has basically 3 P's to go along with it. And the first P of planning is the person. And so as you're working on a great drawing, a good friend of mine drew this, and think about, so what we're trying to do here is set things up so you don't have to think and you don't have to get started fresh every time you're creating a piece of content. So by planning ahead of time, you can just sit down when it's time to do your work, and we'll get to that later when we're talking about the process on a daily basis for going through this. But if you have these things straight up front and think about these things and answer these questions for yourself, you don't have to worry about those things when you're sitting down to do content. So figure out who your person is. A persona, it's usually called. Who is it that you are talking to? And it might be your ideal customer. You can go through an exercise and ask yourself, who is this person? Why are they paying attention to you? What are their pain points? What makes them tick? Who is it? So this here is a mom who worries about a lot of things. She worries about money. She worries about time and her mean boss and her kids resenting her. And the more specific you get about the person that you're writing to, the better your content is, and the more that your audience will connect with you because you're talking to that one person. And that's another important thing, is to write to one person. Don't write to a group. Use you singular when you're talking and writing. And if you don't have someone like this, another good way to think about it, especially if you're trying to be kind of more personal in your writing style, is to just pick a friend. Somebody that you might be writing an email to, explaining what you're explaining, and just talk to that person. And you'll find that the content flows much easier, and it's much more fun to read that sort of content than something that's much more stiff and formal. So think about that. Get your person, and set that up. And it doesn't have to be representative of everybody who's reading. The important thing is that you just pick one person, and everyone else can relate to it probably. So even if I'm talking to this mom here, there are people who aren't moms who could probably connect with the language I'm using, because I'm not actually talking about her money problems or her kids resenting her, but she's in my mind when I'm talking, and that's really the important thing. The next P is to have a purpose, and I don't know, this guy just looks like he has a purpose. And the content that you're creating should have a purpose. I think what we saw before with that Rand Fishkin slide, people just focus on SEO, and the purpose of their content is to just get search engine traffic. But your content should actually have a purpose. What's it for? And good content marketing solves a problem, fulfills a need, or entertains. And so always think about the purpose. Why are you writing this for your audience as you sit down to write? And also, content should also have a secondary purpose of serving what you want to get out of it. What are you trying to do? We're marketing to people, so we're trying to get people to do something for us. So the purpose of your content is to not only entertain and do something or educate, but also to get them to do something for you. And it's not selling, at least not right away or right up front, but get them to follow you, get them to like you, get them to retweet you, get them to engage with you. And always think about that as you're writing your content. And tell them at the end what you want them to do. If you want them to share this, or you want them to sign up for a newsletter, tell them to do that. And that's the purpose of this content. And thirdly, Boy Scouts are prepared, and the third P in planning is to prepare. And get yourself all set up and ready to work on content, so that when you sit down to do it, you're not figuring out all the different things you need to. Get your tools in place, all your writing tools, all your sharing and scheduling tools to social media, your blogs, email, all that stuff should be automatic by the time you're sitting down to write and create content. If you have to worry about finding this, the place where you were saving your research, or you have to worry about what bookmarking tool or where you're going to schedule something, these little roadblocks will just get in your way, and you'll stop. I think you've probably all experienced that, where the tools and the process gets in the way, and you just don't get into the actual creation of content. So everything has to be automatic. So get those things in place. Set up your analytics and your tracking, ahead of time, so that set up Google Analytics, set up campaigns, set up UTM tracking codes, which is codes that you can put on the links that you're sharing, so that when the clicks come to your website, you can see specifically where that traffic's coming from. Not only now and right away when you share it to social media, but down the road. All of a sudden something could spike and take off, and you want to know where that's going to be coming from. So get your analytics all set up, and finally, plan out your content ideas. Get your ideas out on a calendar. Get things so that you are not having to think about what you're going to write the next day or the next week when you sit down to write some content. So go through a process of brainstorming, come up with, think about the type of questions that person might have, do some keyword research, find the types of questions that people are asking, and write those things down and get them on an editorial calendar. Even if they're just kind of keywords, this is what this article is going to be about, get it on a calendar so that you know that you've got a good amount of content going out into the future. Some people plan 6 months to a year out, and if you can plan a few months out with a good piece of content once a week, I think you're doing pretty well. And that's what that's what you can focus on. That's what you can be ready to work on when you sit down, instead of sitting down. Okay, what am I going to write about? And then you spend an hour doing that, and then ending up not writing anything. So in review, the 3 P's of planning are: find your person and define that person and write to them. Always have a purpose for your content, and prepare. And that way we'll get things done every day when we sit down to do the work. The next P in PPDM is produce. And this is where you're actually sitting down to produce the content. You've got all the planning done. You're now in the groove and getting ready to write and create. And you just got to ask yourself these questions every time. For every piece of content that you're sitting down to write, who's this for and who's writing it? What are you writing, and what is its purpose? What question or problem or is it solving, and why? What is this content about? Now, where is this content going to be published? A lot of us sit down and just write a blog post and publish it to our blog, but good content marketing is much, much bigger than that. You can take a blog post, take the content that you have in there, and turn it into tweets and Facebook posts. Think about other purposes you can use for this content. Maybe you can make an ebook out of it. Maybe you can make a slide share out of it. You can share it on image services like Instagram and Pinterest. So as you're creating this content, think about it as something bigger than a blog post. Think you're going to use this content somewhere else. So as you're doing this, create images and create quotes and things like that you can easily, quickly pull out of that content and use for sharing on social media, and on something like SlideShare. If you can take a great blog post and turn it into a SlideShare with a bunch of images, that's a great secondary use for that content. And I think we fall into the trap of just writing a blog post and posting it right away. But think about when you're going to post this and schedule it. Get into the habit of scheduling things and not just writing and posting, because that's just a trap that you get yourself into. You get caught up in kind of real-time content marketing, and you're just always thinking about it, and you're just always doing it, and you're stuck in Twitter and Facebook all the time, trying to keep things active. But if you can think about when you're going to post this content, if you're writing some good content, you can break it up into pieces. You can schedule that stuff out in advance. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but I think if you can get yourself out of kind of this real-time publishing of content, I think we tend to think that what we're writing, we need to post it now and then watch it and see what kind of reactions we get. And you just spend hours just watching for all the happy people that are reading your content. But if you can get yourself away from that, and that's a time waster, schedule it so it just happens, and then you'll get notified when the responses come in. And you can save a whole lot of time by not just publishing and watching what happens. And by doing that, you're thinking about all the different social media. You can tweet things out on schedule. If you just tweet once that you did a blog post, you're missing lots of people probably. Do that few days out, again and again a few more days out. And just, you have to market the content that you're creating. And if you do all these things, you're prepared like that Boy Scout. All right, so D in PPDM is distribute. And once you've got your content, and we talked about scheduling things out and taking your content and using it in many different ways. I think a trap that a lot of people fall into is they just send stuff out to places like Facebook and Twitter, other places for their Pinterest that is not their own. I like to use the expression, pay yourself first. So when you create some good content, publish it first on your own property. Have a blog, have a place that you own, and then share that content out to primary and secondary social media places. So always, even if it's a small piece of curated content, you can still make a post out of that and post it to your blog or your website, and then tweet that out. Drive traffic back to your website. Not always. You can just share other people's content, and I'll talk about curation in a bit. But I think more than people tend to do, you should be publishing on your own kind of home base, your content headquarters, and keep that close. And that content will grow and generate search engine traffic and bring people in. You have control and to promote to them and get them on your email list and do the things that you need to do to grow your audience. The primary social media is what we all know about: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Obviously, these are must-dos, but secondary social media like Pinterest and Instagram, image services that are depending on your audience. Don't forget those as well, and use these different places to distribute your content. But then, even after you've distributed to these places, think about how you can reuse that content. Like I said before, SlideShare is a great place to take some content, turn it into some slides, and publish that to a place like SlideShare. Especially if you're in a business-to-business type industry, it's a huge resource that a lot of people don't know about. A ton of traffic comes from places like Pinterest. SlideShare. A ton of traffic also comes from places like Pinterest, if that's your audience. People who are focused on things like crafts and home stuff and fashion and that sort of thing. And a massive amount of traffic can come from places like Pinterest and even Instagram and Tumblr. And the last thing in PPDM is measure. And this is something that a lot of people fail to do, which is to just measure your content and the performance of your content. And it's using the metaphor in a different way here. But what you want to do with your content is to look, listen, and learn. Look, listen, and learn. Observe what's happening with your content. Don't just publish it and let it go. Watch what's happening. Watch what content that you're creating and sharing is getting a lot of activity on social media. Get some tools that, any tool that has sharing and scheduling will show you the kind of reach and the clicks and the likes and the comments that you're getting from that. And look at that stuff and report on it and sort on it and find the stuff that is getting good response and learn from that and do it again. And take that same content that maybe was individually getting some good response and turn it into something else. Expand on something that was really popular as a tweet, make a big blog post out of it. Or do a recap post of a whole bunch of things that you shared. And that's one of the techniques that we use in our 30 minutes a day content marketing. So if you've gone through all these steps in the PPDM, your actual daily content marketing should take very little time because you're not kind of doing that startup cost every time that you sit down, and you can you'll be ready to go when you hit the ground running. And at this point, your daily strategy should or could revolve around content curation, where you're finding and sharing other people's great content. And I'll talk about curation in a minute. And making that the heavy lifting for keeping all of your social media and your content channels active. And then by doing that, you can focus on creating really good content instead of a whole bunch of mediocre content that you're creating yourself. So focus on kind of less volume of your own writing and higher quality when you do your own blog posts. So let's talk about curation. Basically, content curation. The word comes from the old word of curating, which is putting together an exhibit in a museum, or and the curator in a museum takes stuff that all other people created and puts it together in a way that tells a story. It's bigger than the individual things inside, inside that curated piece of work. And that's what digital content curation is as well. You don't have to create all your own content. In any given industry, there are already hundreds of people creating great stuff that you can and should share with your audience. And it does two things. First of all, it positions you as an expert. You're doing a favor for people, and you are providing them with good content to read so they don't have to go find it. So that adds value right there. And by sharing other people's content in your industry, you're connecting with them as another thought leader or another expert in that industry. People love having their stuff shared. So you share it to Facebook and Twitter and tag them, or @name them in Twitter, and they're going to retweet you and thank you and appreciate you sharing their content. So you're also establishing yourself as one of their peers, as someone who's appreciating their stuff, sharing it out and sharing it with your audience. So because of that, curation is a great strategy for keeping your social media active. I think it's a well-known best practice that you should be tweeting 3, 4, 5 times a day to keep an active audience, and maybe on Facebook page a little bit less than that. But getting some good stuff out there constantly so that you become predictable, and people are noticing you more and more. That's the first, that A in the arc, Sonia's arc, is getting attention. Curation is not lazy, it's not automated, it's not aggregation. You're doing some good work here, reading all this stuff, finding the best stuff, and sharing it with your audience. So it's not, I think a misconception is that it's stealing content or plagiarizing. You're giving credit to the people you're sharing. That's a mindset that people, I think, have to get over, is that they're promoting somebody else. But and maybe you are, but what you're really doing is positioning yourself as one of them, and in a way that that person will appreciate that as well. And this is, I don't know if any of you parents out here, this is Uniqua, and just to remind me to tell you that good curation brings a unique perspective to what you're publishing. So don't just shoot content out there, shoot out links, and add your own perspective to things. Read it, summarize it, create a post out of it. I think content curation in three forms. One is simple curation. You're just sharing a link to Twitter or Facebook, for somebody, not really doing much more to it other than adding a comment or a comment on the tweet or the Facebook post. Then there's curation that is creating content on your own home base. And there's two types of that sort of content. So some examples of that are Upworthy. We're all familiar with Upworthy. It's a curation model. They find great videos and make a web page out of it on their site. Write something funny or something inspiring about that video, and they share that page, not the video, to Facebook and drive the traffic to their site. That's curation. But besides the crazy headlines that we have to tolerate, the content itself is pretty engaging, and it's fun to watch, and they've got millions and millions of fans because of that type of service they're providing, but it's all curation. And then there's so that's curating a single piece of content. Then there's the BuzzFeed model, where you're finding a whole bunch of things and putting them all in a big, long post. And again, nothing on BuzzFeed is original. It's stuff that they've pulled off of Reddit, they've pulled off of different places, but created sometimes a funny post about whatever that topic was. And so those are kind of the three types of curation, and the different ways that you can take other people's content and turn it into something that is valuable, serves a purpose, and is engaging for your audience. So I apologize for the Backyardigans song that is in some of your heads right now. I won't sing it. All right, so let's talk about the process to get all this done quickly. So if you've done all that other stuff, that's how to do successful content marketing by following a lot of those procedures and set yourself up to be successful. So how can we do this in a short amount of time every day? And this is another bad acronym, RCCCP. I tried so hard. I got to call up Chris Brogan, get him to help me out. But I came up with another one that I don't like to put on a slide because the acronym it works for me. It's ricin, which is poison, but made famous by Breaking Bad, which I love. So it sticks in my head. But ricin is read the ideas and capture ideas. C for curate. I invent content, and N recap and reuse in a newsletter. And so that's ricin works for me. But the important thing here is to have this as the overall process. Always be reading. Always teaching yourself and becoming the expert and a thought leader, in your industry. So set yourself up with good RSS feeds and a good place to always have good content to read. That does two things. It keeps your head fresh and your mind full of ideas for blog posts and content, and it also allows you to find stuff to share. And a great process is to find good stuff, share it right away, and then store it away and write about it and expand on it later. And that's where the capturing ideas comes in. Get yourself set up with a place to capture ideas, whether it's Evernote or a bookmarking tool like Pocket or Kipt or Shareist. We have tools like this. Capture your ideas in a place where you'll have them, and not just sharing stuff out always to Facebook and Twitter, because once you do that, you're just dumping all these things that you're finding basically into the ocean. And do it in a way that you're capturing this stuff and then sharing it. So you always have this stuff in a place where you're going to be able to come back to it later and use that for reusing that content. That's the curation piece, is capturing the stuff but then sharing it out. So find something good, schedule out to social media. Don't just share it right away. Get into the mode of filling up a queue of content to go out. And then take this content that you've been finding and these ideas that you've been gathering and think about new content that you can create yourself, whether it's the Upworthy or BuzzFeed type posts or whether it's truly original, kind of what we like to call epic content, that amazing piece of content that you spend a lot of time writing that's going to get shared over and over and over again. And that's really, when you're thinking about creating your own content, your goal is to create that really great piece. Not something that you rush out in an hour because, oh my God, I have to write a blog post, but something that you can focus on over a period of time and create something really great. Because otherwise you're probably wasting your time. And use this stuff over and over again. Recap the posts that you've been curating. Reuse the page content that you're creating for email newsletters and white papers that you can give away for downloads. And that's the overall process. So here's actual, get your hands in and what we do, and you can mix and match this. But this is what we do, and this is what we talk about doing for a week doing this stuff in a very short amount of time every day. So on Monday is kind of the curation day. You get in, you're reading from all your sources, and you go through captured content and curate the types of stuff that you think your audience would like to see. Schedule this stuff out, fill up the week, 3 times a day, 4 times a day, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and get that stuff ready to go. So then when you schedule these things and you fill up your week with not your own stuff that you're writing, just curate stuff and get things out there. And that's kind of filling up the week with some good stuff that you know that your social channels will be active. Once you do that on Monday, you can still keep an eye out for things to share. But again, try to stay away from that real-time sharing because it's not on schedule. It might not be at the time that it needs to be seen or heard. And fill up your queue. It feels like something that you see, you need to share it right away because everyone else is going to already have seen it, and that's just not true. Something that is really great for you today is going to be really valuable to somebody several days out when you can schedule it. You can find stuff from 2 years ago that's really great. You don't need to share that now. You can schedule that out in the future. So you can spend 30 minutes doing that with your cup of coffee. And then on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is more kind of the content days. And look over what is trending and what type of stuff that you've been sharing over the past week or two has been getting engagement. And think about what big idea can you get out of that. And brainstorm that, get these ideas on a calendar, and pick that topic maybe for the week that you're going to write about. And so get some ideas in the calendar, but pick out that piece of unique piece of content that you're going to sit down and write about, and get started on that. And on Wednesday, work on that, but also, create one of those other types of curated posts. Find some of these, a curated post that would take less time, like an Upworthy or BuzzFeed type post. Can you find some content like that you're gonna that you can create some good content out of? Third day in, still working on that piece of content, and if you're spending 3 days, half hour or maybe a little more time if you've got it, you're going to create something much better than if you just jammed out that piece of content, in one sitting. Create something really great, something that's going to be shareable, something that people are going to look at and say, I want other people to see this. Cite sources, create a real meaty piece of content if you can, and use all the tools you have in place to distribute that. Not only to your blog, but social media, SlideShare, Pinterest, wherever it is that your audience might be. And then on Friday, which is my favorite day because you just sit down, look at all the stuff that you've been doing all over the week, and pull it all together and make a recap post out of it. So it's a whole new piece of content based on the content that you've been capturing and creating all week, and just put it all together in an email. You can whip that out in an email service provider's tool or a piece of or software that will create that page for you, and then just shoot it out to your email newsletter that you've been building and capturing email on your website or your blog, and also share it on your blog, as another page, and promote that to social media and different channels. Also take this time to take a look at feedback, and make sure at least once a week. You can be doing this all the time or every day, but just look for feedback. Make sure you engage with your audience. Make sure you're retweeting and liking and sharing and starring the comments that you're getting from your audience, because that's engaging, that's building a reputation, and then that's building a community. On the weekend, if you want to rest, you can, or get a jump on the week, and again, keep reading and keep learning and teaching yourself. And if you can get yourself into this model of doing this stuff automatically, these are things that just takes people's time, all day, every day, doing this stuff haphazardly. And if you can focus it down into some much more smaller time slots, you can save a lot of time. A few more things, and then I'll be done in a couple slides, and we can have some questions. So maybe think about questions if you have any. Just some tips for curating really quickly. Really take some time to find good sources to draw from. Get yourself a feed reading tool like Feedly, or we have one in Shareist, to pull all these feeds in so that you can sit down and that when you're in that mode of reading, always have something to check out and read. When you're capturing these things into a bookmarking tool, make sure you tag these things and do topic-based curated posts out of that. So, if you're curating on a bunch of different topics or subtopics, use some tags to help you pull this stuff together later. Maybe as a recap for the week, or maybe once a month you can pull all the great stuff together that's tagged a certain way. And always be watching for patterns to emerge in the content that you're curating, and to help you generate ideas for more content and to find more great stuff to curate. Because curation is becoming much more bigger piece of the content pie as time goes on. So yeah, PPDM, plan, produce, distribute, and measure. And this is my last slide. If you follow these steps, you can have a successful content strategy in a short amount of time. So that's it for the presentation. If anyone has any questions, there's a microphone that they'll have to run around with. Maybe they weren't ready for it. I'll repeat the question. Go ahead.
You mentioned Upworthy and BuzzFeed as two places to capture curated information. Then you said something to do with Feedly. What would you recommend besides Upworthy and BuzzFeed?
All right, well, the question was, I mentioned Upworthy and BuzzFeed as a place to do curation, and Feedly is a place to track feeds. Well, so first of all, BuzzFeed and Upworthy are examples of websites that do curation. It's not a place for you to do it. So check those out for inspiration for the type of curated content you can create. Okay. So as far as tools that I would recommend, besides my own, of course, depending on what you're looking to do. So, there's a lot of different tools, and that's what makes this a challenge, and actually why we're building Shareist is to kind of pull all this stuff together into one place. So there are lots of tools you can use for capturing ideas. Bookmarking tools, they're called. So look for tools like Pocket, and Kipt, Kiipt, Kipt. Instapaper, tools that help you capture things and then read them on your mobile devices, tools like that. For sharing, I think most people use Hootsuite. Buffer is another one, and our platform also has sharing tools, and lots of content platforms also have sharing and scheduling tools built into them, so you don't have to use those things. And then there's tools like Sway, which we have integrated with Shareist, but you can use that independently. Feedly, like you mentioned, where you can capture your own RSS feeds into for getting content ideas.
With duplicate content being such an issue, with duplicate content,
Go ahead.
all right, with
Don't be
duplicate
shy.
content being such an
It was working. Right up to your mouth.
issue. Okay. How do you get around when you're retweeting or reposting, doing more than 100 characters posting, and not having it just completely ruin the original site?
So the question is how to avoid duplicate content issues when you're posting things and distributing things out to your, what I kind of call outposts.
Yeah, or if you put on the wire or wherever you're putting it in, how do you make sure you're the authority on it?
Well, there are a lot of techniques that you can use from an SEO standpoint that a lot of people use, I think, to make sure that you're kind of seen as the first source of that content. There are plugins that will put links in the content back to the blog post. Sean uses that on his affiliate tip blog, stuff like that. Mostly, honestly, I try not to worry about it too much and let Google figure it out. I'm more worried about getting my content in front of the people that are going to read it and engage with it than I am about if I'm getting engagement and getting people talking about and getting a good reputation and getting a lot of people sharing my content, Google's going to use that as a signal. They're going to be linking back to your content. So Google will use that as a signal just as strongly as anything else these days. So I think it's important to take that step and get the content out there. You don't have to put the entire thing out there either. You can put pieces of that content out there. If you put something out on SlideShare, you're changing the format of it and driving traffic back. If you put something out on Facebook, on a page or LinkedIn, you don't have to put the whole thing out there. You can put an image with a teaser and bring it back to your page. Any other questions?
I have a question about content. So I have a large senior citizen website, and we need a lot of content, way more than I'm going to be able to generate. This doesn't necessarily cover what you were talking about, but are there places that I can go to find folks that have written some good content that they're looking for vehicles?
Yes. There's thousands and thousands of people out there with content who would love for you to publish it on your site.
How do I find them?
There are a few different places. There are some services, and off the top of my head, I can't think of them. But there are services that connect writers with people who need content for their blogs. So there's some kind of blogger connect newsletters where you can publish kind of an ad, or a request for content, and that'll get sent out to a big list of people, and they'll contact you. And kind of like Harrow, Peter Shankman's old Help a Reporter Out model, where you send him, a reporter sends him a request for somebody to help them with a story. That same model exists for bloggers and writers. So there's services like that. I'll pull some of these things together and get them out to you. There's also just some services that focus on connecting writers, either from a free model where you're getting guest posts and that sort of thing, or paid where you're paying for writers. And there are services for that. And you can just go to places like Odesk and Elance and sites like that, and there are people out there who just do this for a living. Any other questions? All right, should we just stand here for the rest of the hour? Or we can go.
Can you tell us more about Shareist? Or is that
Sure. So Shareist helps with all the things that I've been talking about today. We have tools. It's basically helps you take all these things that you're doing with all these different tools I was talking about in one place. So from the research side of things, and we have an integration with Sway, like I said, or we have a feed reader that you can just pull in RSS feeds and have within Shareist, kind of that always fresh list of content. You can also integrate with some of those third-party tools like Instagram and Pocket and Kipt if you're capturing content in those other places, and automatically get that stuff into Shareist. So you can always have that stuff in one place ready to go. I think one of the biggest problems with doing content is it's all over the place, and you just kind of lose track of it. I use bookmarking tools over the years, and they're black holes to me because they're not in the same place where I'm doing stuff with the content. So we're trying to get that all together into one place, not necessarily replace all these tools, but kind of be glue for them. And so the research part of it, and then capturing ideas. We have a bookmarklet, we have an inbox, we call it a content inbox. We can capture stuff into that. And so once some stuff is captured, then you can quickly just click on it, schedule it and share it to social media, click on a bunch of them, click a button, make a page out of it, and so to create page type content. So that recap post that I was talking about is very, very easy in Shareist because you've got all the stuff in your inbox. You just check off a bunch of boxes, hit a button, and you've instantly got this page. And then you can add to it, add your commentary, add an introduction or whatever, and then hit a button to publish it to WordPress, which you've connected into Shareist. Hit a button to publish it to MailChimp that you've connected to Shareist, so you can publish all from one place as well. And that's what we're trying to do, just kind of make it all easier like that. Thanks for the question, Melly, so I could plug it. Yeah.
Scott, I like the Monday through Friday scheduling
Mm-hmm.
because it makes me feel like it gives me peace of mind to have a schedule like that. But I couldn't type it fast enough. Can you go back to those slides so I can take pictures of the Monday through Friday schedules?
I can, but the slides are all available
Are they? Okay,
on
great.
SlideShare.
Oh, okay, great.
I just tweeted a link to them
Okay,
on
good.
with the hashtag ASC14.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Yeah. Hi, Yoon.
When you talked about measuring, does it also measure how long visitors viewed that blog post? So you can get a sense if they read it or not?
In Shareist, no, but you can connect analytics tools that will,
Okay.
You can put in all sorts of analytics tools that specialize in that sort of stuff, like Crazy Egg and tools
Yeah.
like that do heat maps and help you understand how people are looking at your content, how people are interacting with your content. So there are lots of tools that do kind of heat maps and show you how long people are looking at your content, looking at bounce rates, all that stuff. And you can use, there are lots of tools that are either free or inexpensive that can help you with that sort of stuff.
So that's not a feature that Google Analytics does? I
Google
thought it
Analytics
did.
has some of that stuff. Yeah.
The length of page views. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
All right. Thank you so much.